Hello, everyone. Welcome to Measuring the Score podcast, the podcast where we offer our opinions on film scores and the films they're inspired by. I'm Chris.
And I'm Leslie.
Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Measuring the Score. Today we're going to be talking about Ocean's 11. Now, this is the remake starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and tons of other Hollywood stars. But before we begin, Leslie, have you been listening to anything other than the score we're going to be talking about today?
Yes, I have been listening to the score to 310 to Yuma.
310 to Yuma. That's
The
Marco
remake.
Yeah, that's Marco Beltrami.
Right.
That was a good score. He was nominated for that score.
I love it.
Really?
Yeah, I do. It's very reminiscent of some of the old westerns, in my opinion, and it's very reminiscent of, in places, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, Marco made it his own, so you could tell it's Marco. It's got its own feel and sound, and
Right.
It's just amazing. I love it.
Was that the first time you ever heard it?
This is about the second or third time I've listened to it.
I remember something about that score. There was one piece, the one near the end of the film. It was originally supposed to be for another scene, and James Mangold, or Mangold, however you pronounce it, the director, said, I think he rearranged it and decided to put that piece there, and talked to Marco about it. I remember seeing a behind the scenes video. That was pretty cool. And that would become like the big highlight of the movie was that one piece right there.
Oh, it's like, the good, bad, the ugly. The highlight of that one is the ecstasy of gold. Everything builds to that piece. So,
Right.
It's still very reminiscent of, it's almost like an homage to the old Western.
Yeah, I liked it. It was a good score. I really liked that one. I've been listening to two different scores. One of them...
Oh, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Yeah, Mr. Fancy
You
Pants.
got to listen to two instead of one.
I was listening to Dune by Hans Zimmer because he just won an Academy Award for that score.
Did he?
He did. He won
I did not follow them yesterday.
Not yesterday. That was the Grammys yesterday.
Oh, excuse me. It's been a long day.
It has been a long day. No. Hans Zimmer, and of course, it was one of the things that was very frustrating about the Oscars, among other things, but which we're not going to talk about that on this podcast. But the Academy Award for Best Original Score was not televised. It was one of the things that was cut off this year.
Yeah, I when I saw that announcement, I was kind of upset because, in my opinion, the music, the directors, all of the hard work that goes on behind the scenes, it's one of the reasons why the movies are so successful. If you didn't have that element, the actors and actresses would not shine at all, like
Right.
the stars that they are. So, yes, I was kind of upset that they didn't televise that, because they deserve their own share of the spotlight.
No, and I agree. But Hans Zimmer, he accepted his award in very, very graceful, in a bathrobe. At his house.
Well, when you're Hans Zimmer and you've got millions of dollars, you can be eccentric like that
Yeah, exactly.
and wear a bathrobe everywhere.
I thought it was great. Steve Jablonski, he was the one that posted it. It was Hans Zimmer had like a little plastic Academy Award. He was holding it up, smiling in a bathrobe. I loved it. So I was going back and listening to that score, trying to, understand. Because the first time I listened to it, I didn't really like it too much. I think it's one of those scores that really works better for the film.
I haven't seen the new Dune.
I haven't
yet.
either.
Granted, I have seen the old Dune.
I haven't seen that one either.
What?
I've never seen the original thing.
So
Dune.
I have seen something you haven't
Yes.
seen. Oh, this is a rare day indeed, everyone. Rare. Fantastic.
I know about the movie because there's like a lot of controversy about it. I know it stars Kyle MacLachlan, but I have never seen it.
You need to see it,
I know.
but it's really long.
Yeah, that's one reason why I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I heard
just
it's
remember
really
it being
long.
long.
Another score I've been listening to is The Contractor, starring Chris Pines. It's from a newish
Was
composer.
that movie we were supposed to watch the other day?
I don't know.
Or we've talked about watching.
We
wanted to
talked about
watch.
we talked about watching it. It's by a newish composer. He's worked a lot with Henry Jackman. His name is Alex Belcher, and I'm listening to the score, and it's very well done and everything else, but it's very generic. There's no themes. It's just kind of there, and it's one of those scores. I'm like trying to pay my respects to the composer and listen to the thing all the way through, but it's just kind of droning on. And when I get to that point, because I've said this many times before on the podcast, I listen to a lot of music on the way to work because I have a long commute. And if it starts getting to the point where I'm getting kind of bored, I'm going to find something else to listen to.
Oh, you sound like Dad. 2
Yeah.
seconds and then he's gonna
Well,
flip the channel.
No, I gave it like
I give her like 10 seconds.
No, I gave it like 10 tracks in. And I'm going, okay, this is
That's
not,
hardcore.
this is not engrossing me. It's not working. But I'm gonna try to finish it. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I have a bad habit of flipping through radio stations like their TV channels.
Yes, you do. You really do. It is so
Something
frustrating.
on the radio, I don't.
I'm like, just put it on something and leave it there. But no, Leslie's going over there flipping 500 channels. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop. I wanted to hear that song. No, I don't like it. Click, 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 click. You ever seen those movies where it's like the radio station and you hear where they're like flipping like, that's you.
What? They shouldn't have put that button on my steering wheel then. That button has made me dangerous.
Very, very dangerous.
And the sad thing is that I've done it for so long because, I've had my car for almost 20 years. I have done it for so long now that when I drive another car that doesn't have that button on the steering wheel, I find myself pressing at the button that's not there.
I've done that.
I'm like,
because
wait.
In my personal car, that button doesn't work. It's like something's wrong with my steering wheel. But yet in my work truck, that button works. So I'm sitting there in the work truck steadily pressing it. So when I get in the car, I'm pressing it. But like, oh, wait, no, this is my car. It doesn't work.
Yep.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about Ocean's 11 with music by David Holmes. Now, when this film came out, it came out in 2001. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh. I remember when it was announced that George Clooney, Matt Damon, all these big stars are going to be in this one heist movie. I was kind of curious as to what kind of score it was going to be. And when the film finally came out and I listened to it, it to me was one of the highlights listening to, watching the film. The music, it was not like traditional score. It was drum and bass mixed with old school jazz and saxophone and orchestra. I mean, it sounded like a big homage to the original Ocean's 11. With Frank Sinatra, the original Rat Pack.
Mr. Fank.
Fank.
Mr. Fank.
It's been a long day.
Fank Sinatra.
Fank Sinatra. Fank. Fanks. Anyways. No, it did. It had that old school film score sound to it, but it had the modernized drum and bass, drum loops, and everything else. And I remember it being one of the things I really enjoyed about Ocean's 11. Now, David Holmes, now according to InquirersJournal.com, originally a popular DJ in Belfast, Holmes began working with Soderbergh in 1998 with the film Out of Sight, which also stars George Clooney and Don Cheadle that are in this film here.
Amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
It's like they all like to work together.
Yeah, and Holmes has worked with Soderbergh a lot. The last thing he worked on, I have it right here, it was No Sudden Move, which also starred Don Cheadle. I think Don Cheadle was like the main actor in that, which,
He's a good actor.
He really is, and he is hilarious in this movie.
I like him as Captain Planet.
Oh, wow, I forgot about him as Captain Planet, man.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. If you have not watched that, seriously, go look up College Humor, Don Cheadle, Captain Planet. It was just one of the funniest things in the world because one of the things, besides Don Cheadle himself as Captain Planet, it was, when the Planeteers are all doing their things, it was like Earth, Wind, Fire. Then you got the one guy, Heart.
Well, even as a kid, you try to figure out what was the purpose of heart.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense because there were elements. But anyway, we regress.
Yeah.
So, when I first listened to the score, it was immediately to me reminiscent of the jazz that was prevalent in 1960s. Kind of really jazzy. You could hear elements of the rhythm section with a snare. You can hear the snare very well. Organs, you could hear the horn line, and you can hear the saxophone,
Mhm.
or I could rather. Granted, that y'all might hear something else if you listen to the score. What I really did like about it was the use of the organ. It kind of reminded me of the Doors. The Doors use of the
Yeah.
organ, that jazzy organ sound. So that's what it put me in mind of, and it also put me in mind of what you would think that casino music would sound like.
Now, all right. So, one thing I want to talk about that was a little frustrating trying to listen to this. There's no, not that I could find anyway. I didn't do like a hardcore search. We listened to this on Spotify, and the only one that was available had dialogue from the film mixed into the score. I mean, now some of it kind of worked, but it was distracting, especially for this purpose here. Like we're trying to judge it on its own, and it was, I don't know. Like I said, it was really distracting, and it was like, okay, I remember this part. It's it kind of works with the score and everything else. Listening to it, but it's like I don't want to hear him talk. I don't want to hear the dialogue. I'm going to hear that. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear the score. I want to hear everything. I mean, as some of them work.
I think on the flip side, though, the dialogue kind of set the mood for the
Yeah,
score piece, what the score piece might be about.
yeah,
It was kind of like the theme. So instead of him conveying the theme or motif, however you want to say it, conveying that in the music sound, he conveyed it in with the dialogue,
yeah.
which was a really odd mix to me. I was
Yeah,
with you. I was kind of, it kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. I was not happy with it because I wanted to hear just the music.
yeah. And like I said, I didn't do a hardcore search anywhere and try to find where if the just the score itself was available. Now I know the Ocean's 12 and Ocean's 13 scores were also composed by David Holmes. Those are available without the dialogue in there, but they still have not released a score with just Ocean's 11 that I know of, with no dialogue. But I mean, there's still a lot of songs in there I could really get into, like the $160 million Chinese Man. I love that score. That's for the part at the end.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite piece out of the score. There are two pieces that are different from the rest of the score, and that is the piece entitled Tess and the one entitled Pickpockets. It
Yes.
kind of sounds different. It doesn't have that jazzy feel that the other pieces have. Tess's score piece, if you listen to it, to me, it was very reminiscent of elevator music.
Yeah.
Very soft elevator music.
Yeah. I think that was because, well, the pickpocket scene took place in Chicago. It didn't take place around the casino, so I think it had to lose the casino feel. And with Tess, I think that was to convey she's not part of the heist. She doesn't, she has nothing to do with it. Maybe that's why the music sounded different.
But it's really distinct. And so when you listen to the score and you get to that piece, you initially, when I say initially, you immediately hear that there is a difference.
Yeah, and there is a big difference. Now there was one track. I'm trying to find it. Here it is. It's Blues in the Night, and that's by Quincy Jones. And it's the sequence where Saul, when you first meet Saul at the racetrack, and I think it's played a couple more times throughout the film. I thought for sure that was part of the score because it sounded like everything else. It sounded just like, everything else that David Holmes had done. I don't know if Quincy Jones made it for this film to kind of help David Holmes out or what, but I thought for sure it was part of the score. And then when it started playing them, and it said, Blues of the Night, Quincy Jones, I'm like, wait, what? I was like, that's Saul's theme. What are you talking about?
No.
And which for the sequels, especially for Ocean's 13, David Holmes incorporated that style for Saul, which Carl Reiner was hilarious. But we'll get to that one. The score though, overall, listening to it on its own, I I mean, I was still a lot of moments I was kind of tapping my toes to it, and I was like, yeah, look, I kind of like this.
So, which you'll get my opinion when we talked about the movie section, but the score by itself was enjoyable. I liked it. I do like listening to jazz from time to time.
Did you ever tap your fingers on the steering wheel while you're driving?
I
While
don't
you
know. I don't know. I might have
listen-
tried to tap my fingers to keep it off of the radio button, like a nervous twitch. I don't know. But no.
No, I can't listen to Frank Sinatra.
Good old Pink. Anyway, so I like the score in its entirety. I like the jazz feel. To me, this would be kind of like a smooth listening if you're trying to de-stress at the end of the day type of thing. It's very light.
Yeah.
And it is enjoyable, especially if you like jazz, with a lot of snare and the organ and the saxophone and, those old elements.
You were talking about the music really sounds like casino music. One of the things it made me think of, because whenever, well, I don't know if they still do it now, but 90% of the time when they talk about or they show Las Vegas or anything, they play the song by Elvis Presley, the remix. It was I'm gonna have to look this up. And
Viva Las Vegas.
no, well, that one, or it's this is terrible.
There was a trivia thing about that.
A little less conversation.
That one was used because everybody associated Viva Las Vegas with Las Vegas.
Right.
So they decided to use that piece, if I recall what I read, because of that. They didn't want to use Viva Las Vegas since it was well known.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of commercials for Las Vegas, and they had a little less conversation playing. I don't know if it was before this or after this, but whenever I would associate a Las Vegas commercial, I would think of a little less conversation, not Viva Las Vegas. And that style for that remix, the drum and bass and the techno drum loops and stuff like that, I think David Holmes kind of incorporated that into the score. And listening to it, it worked. It really, really worked listening to it. I mean, seriously, guys, if you have not listened to the score, check it out. If you can kind of get past the dialogue, listen to it. It's really fun to listen to. I mean, I know Leslie didn't tap her fingers on the steering wheel, but I did.
Well, because if I was going to tap my fingers, it'd be tapping them to change the radio station. And I was not supposed to do that. I was listening to the score. See?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I remember watching the film. My brother, he's not, he'll pick up on some film scores and stuff like that. But I remember Jason watching the film and listening to the score, going, "I really like this score. I really like this, man."
That's because your brother likes a lot of music, and he
Right.
likes a lot of versatile music.
Yes, because I remember back in the days when Napster first came out. Yes, I did download music illegally. I did.
I knew somebody who downloaded music illegally and then got fined because she got caught.
Oh no, we didn't get caught. This was
And
before
she had to go to court.
Oh no, we did not get caught.
It was a lot of money she had to pay.
But no, we would create some playlists. Now we didn't download like a bunch of music. I think I made like maybe one CD for me, one CD for Jason, and then we never do it again. Because right when we started doing, that's when it started becoming a big thing. People download music illegally. But I remember in his playlist would go from techno, and it was like In the Hall of the Mountain King techno, and then it would go to rap, and then it would go to metal, and then it would go to Harry Connick Jr., which sounds like this type of music here. And I'm not kidding. That was his playlist. And then it would go to another metal song, and I'm just like going, what? You go from Harry Connick Jr. to Rob Zombie, and I'm going, how does that work? I mean, he's just like, I don't know. I like it. And he would just sit there and he would listen to it. And sure enough, I mean, hey, it is what it is.
He's a very interesting person.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Ocean's 11, now, as Chris mentioned, this is the 2001 version. It was released on December 7th, 2001, and it grossed $450.7 million at the box office.
Good Lord. How much was the budget, do you know?
No.
I'll look
However,
that up.
the entire cast worked for less than their usual salaries to bring down the cost of the movie. So it seems like their strategy kind of won out in the end because I bet you they got a piece of that.
Oh, I'm quite sure of it. Especially George Clooney, because I think he was a producer on it.
So
He might be. I don't know. I could be wrong. Oh, I'm wrong. Yep. I am a terrible host.
wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah. Yeah, that was bad. Oh, jeez. I still cannot find a budget. Oh, okay. Budget estimated $85 million.
Yeah, see,
Good Lord, $85 million, and the cast still took.
and they took a pay cut.
What?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So there is a scene where Tess is introduced and you see her walking down this staircase. Brad Pitt ate 40 shrimp for that scene.
Well, that was one of the things. Every time you see Brad Pitt's character, Rusty, he's always eating fast food. And in the commentary, he was talking about the reason why. I think it was either his idea or Steven Soderbergh's idea that these guys are always on the go. So, of course, they're going to pick up nasty food on the way because they got to hurry up. They got to get to the next job. They got to do the next thing. And in the first scene, you see Rusty. He's sitting there eating nachos, waiting on Topher Grace to show up.
Nachos. Delicious. Delicious nachos.
Which I have some nachos and jalapeno cheese in there.
Good for you. I don't like the jalapeno part.
Oh, come on.
I have a bad stomach, sir.
I know.
So, anyway, Luke Wilson and Owen Wilson were to play the brothers Virgil and Turk. But they dropped out at the last minute to film the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, which Danny Glover was supposed to be in this movie, but he also dropped out to play in the Royal Tenenbaums as well.
There's somebody else that was going to be associated with the film that also went to the... It seemed like that was the big movie at the time.
Yeah. Let's talk about this whole scene with the twins, Virgil and Turk Malloy. Okay, you see this little artsy monster truck pull up, and then a real monster truck pull up on the other side of it, which is Scott Conn is driving, and Casey Affleck is, playing the other one. That was like the best opening to two characters ever.
And that is the only scene that you see them actually separate. After that, you see them together as brothers.
Well, the thing that kills me is they're sitting there arguing. He's like, "Go, no, you go, no, you're like a girl, you're like a little girl, go." And then finally he goes, and then because Scott Conn's losing, he runs over the toy car.
So, another trivia about that is that the screenwriter, Ted Griffin, he based those arguments that they had off of the arguments he used to have with his brothers.
And you can see that too, because
they seem like really, arguments that brothers or sisters would really have. I mean, I think that's why it makes those characters likable, because we've all had arguments like that with their siblings.
And then what's the one scene is like with Matt Damon where they're stealing the pinch later on, and Matt Damon's in the back seat and he's like freaking out. He's like, no, don't leave me here with these guys. And they're sitting there arguing. He's like, stop touching me. He's like, I'm not touching you. They're like grown adults, and they're sitting there arguing on who's touching who.
I remember my brother and my sister used to argue like that all the time. And I remember one time Amber told my mom that my brother was breathing too loud. And I remember my mama looking right at my sister saying, "What do you want me to do? Make him stop breathing? That would kill him." And I mean... So, their arguments are very relatable.
Well, I mean, me and Jason, we've argued like that. But Jason likes to pick, he likes to start things just to do it. Like, we would go to the theaters, and I'm sitting there engrossed in the movie and everything else. Also, next thing I know, here comes a handful of popcorn out of nowhere flying at me. And I look over, and Jason's just like, "What, man? What happened? You all right? You good? Somebody throw something?" I was like, really? What are you, 5? And I'm not talking like he's like, late teens. No. This is when he's in the late 30s he's doing this. So that's my brother.
Yeah.
So and the laugh that Scott Conn does, Brad Pitt and Andy Garcia, they were all talking about it on the commentary. They said that you could hear that laugh just like echo throughout everywhere, especially around the catering section. I mean, excuse me, the craft section.
Crafty.
Yeah, crafty. I should know better. I've worked on sets before.
You have. So the last trivia piece that I wrote down was that Johnny Depp was considered for the role of Linus.
I'm glad that didn't happen because I like Matt Damon better as Linus. I mean, he's just, especially in the sequels, he's just so clueless, and he is picked on throughout the whole movie.
You know, for somebody to be such a good pickpocket, the thing about Linus that I like is he's got this innocence to him.
Yeah,
And it's a likable innocence. So there's a naivete to his character that makes kind of no sense since he steals things, which, most people wouldn't even consider doing in their lifetimes, but yet he does.
the one scene that made me laugh was when George Clooney pops up and he's like, "Oh, you didn't really think I was going to sit this one out, did you?" He's like, "Oh, what? You didn't trust me?" And they're sitting there, and that's when Linus realizes, the whole fight and everything that Brad Pitt's character and George Clooney had was all fake. It was just to mess with Linus. He's like, "Oh, come on, man! Why do you got to do that to me? Why don't you just tell me? Like a little kid."
Yeah.
It made me laugh. It makes me laugh every time. This is one movie. You sit down, you watch it, you're gonna smile from the beginning to end because it's just fun throughout. And that's what Steven Soderbergh wanted. He wanted to make a movie that was fun to watch from beginning to end. And I think he did it. I think he pulled it off very nicely. It was fun.
So the first thing I noticed when we started watching the film was that there was no music at the very beginning. And then when the music kind of cut in, it began with a beat and a shaker. You could hear the xylophone that was brought in, and it was at the scene in which they showed the casino in New Jersey.
Yep.
So you could hear the music then.
Yeah, and it's like very subtle too. It's like bow, bow, bow. It was pretty cool. I kind of like that one.
Of course, there's a lot of dialogue in the movie, and so the score is lacking in a lot of places. Which I found kind of problematic because there are some places that I felt like I wanted to hear something, a hit or, a score cue or something like that come in, and it's not there,
See, I don't know. I kind of think it was kind of placed pretty good in a lot of spots. Can you remember what scenes in particular?
The one in particular that I really wanted to hear something on was the scene in which they were looking at the plans, where they went into the plan room.
There was something there, but it just needed to be a little bit more, maybe.
Well, that's my problem I had with the score with the movie.
Yeah.
It made me wanting more. I felt like it was lacking. I love the score by itself, but when you added the score to the movie, I felt like it was lacking in places. And it made me wanting more because it kind of just faded in the background. It didn't stand out.
Yeah. I can kind of see that. Except for the ending piece, which
I still love the ending piece.
I mean,
it's a great piece.
And that was one of the things that worked because it had that. I still remember that horn line and then Andy Garcia walking, which they said. Andy Garcia said that they told him his character's supposed to be like a shark. He's always on the move. He's always moving. He's always going after his prey. And that whole ending sequence worked because you got this whole part. The camera's just kind of looming right on his face, and he's just the way he's walking and everything else. It worked. It worked for his character. It worked for the scene.
And I think if I remember the trivia correctly, that scene where he's walking out of the vault and down the hallway, that was filmed a few weeks apart.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that was not filmed on the same day.
I see. I didn't know that, and you would never notice it either.
No, it's just seamless.
There's always one. There's this one scene every time I watch this movie. There's that one scene that I want to know how they did it. I'm pretty sure it was like some kind of special effect or something. But considering they filmed this in an actual casino, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, the Bellagio.
Yeah, they filmed this in the actual Bellagio. I want to know how they did it. They got this one scene. It's Matt Damon's character first walks up to Andy Garcia, where Matt Damon's playing the Nevada Gaming Commission guy, and Bernie Mac's standing there, and they're like, Matt Damon starts to go off, about the reason why he's there, and he's going to arrest Bernie Mac's character, and Andy Garcia's, don't you think it'd be better if we speak off the floor? And then as they walk off, the camera zooms in to the elevator, and you see Virgil and Turk coming off the elevator. I want to know how they timed that. I mean, did they have like some kind of special effect where they opened the door or something like that? I couldn't find no
Maybe
trivia.
they filmed it different and then they cut it together.
No, they
You
couldn't
don't
have
think
done it.
so?
No, they couldn't have done it like that because it was all in one take. That was one of the things you could definitely tell because there's no cuts. Uh, I want to know how they did it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's something stupid simple where it was they
Egg
had
timer maybe.
and they had it. They
Maybe
probably
they
had
had a
a.
monitor in the elevator.
I think they had a remote, either a monitor in the elevator or a remote where they open the doors. It's probably something like that. But I know it's something like that. I've worked
It's
in
like
this.
Star Trek trivia. You know, anytime you watch or go through the doors of the old Star Trek show, and the doors would just open, well, because there's a guy standing behind the wall pulling the lever.
Right. And I don't think I don't think that's what it was. I mean, but that's what it's in my head. I just imagine two guys on the other side of the doors just opening them up.
They
I know, like I said, I know it was probably like a remote or they had a monitor, like, and door open now. You know, that's probably what happened. But it was every time, and that and one of my favorite scenes is one of mine and Jason's favorite scenes, and we still quote this every day. Is when Brad Pitt shows up as a doctor, and he's got this dumb-looking wig on.
Fun fact about the
Hold
wig.
on. He looks into the camera. He's like, "Someone call for a doctor." I love that part.
Yeah, you love it every time it pops up on screen.
Every
you
time
laugh.
that part happens, I just bust out laughing.
So the wig he was wearing is actually Mike Myers' wig from Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. That's why it looks so funny on him.
It's just funny to see Brad Pitt like that. Someone call for a doctor. That and the whole SWAT team thing. Blue team, move it out.
I can tell you really like this movie.
I've watched this movie one too many times.
I can see.
It's one of my go-to movies. If it's like I can't find nothing on, it's either.
But you always like heist movies. You're
I
a big
really
heist
do.
person.
Now, fun fact about this: it was written by Ted Griffith, and originally they wanted Brett Ratner to direct the film, but I don't know what happened. He either turned it down or Soderbergh accepted it, whatever. Now, Brett Ratner worked with Ted Griffin later on with Tower Heist, which was also another one of those fun movies.
Is that the one with
It's Eddie Murphy, Ben Stiller, and it has Casey Affleck
I
in there.
haven't watched that one.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, it was fun. It was very, very funny. It was a lot funnier than, it was more of a comedy than like this film here.
Is that the one? Is Matthew Broderick in that one as well?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking about the same movie.
Yeah, and it takes place during Thanksgiving, so we may cover that one on one of our Thanksgiving episodes.
Really?
Yes. Oh, it was a really good score, though, as Christopher Beck did the score for that.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll talk
I'll
about
take
that.
your word for it.
It's fun.
So, I felt like the score was too homogenous in places and that it needed more variety. So, at the end of the movie, that was my overall feeling, is that, it was lacking in places and then it was too homogenous. There wasn't enough variety and then it kind of just faded in the background, which I understand the reasoning behind it because of all the dialogue. So you could follow what was going on because there's a lot of moving parts in the movie, but it still made me wanting more.
I guess I can kind of see that. I mean, there were some moments where it's just like it needs to be a little bit punched up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But one sequence I think it really worked was the whole sequence where you first meet Ruben. Elliot Gould's character walking up with the bathrobe wide open, big belly hanging out, hairy chest, and I laugh every time I see it.
And it was his idea for his character to smoke a cigar. So the cigar was his idea.
Yeah. Well, and that's the character trait they kept throughout the rest of the series. Yeah, I thought it was fun. Yeah. I know there was another Ocean's movie. It was Ocean's 8, and that starred Sandra Bullock. David Holmes sadly did not score that one. It was Daniel Pemberton. I remember that score being not as good as the ones from Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean 13. But I mean, the score's fun. I mean, on its own and everything else. So I guess it's about time to get to our questions. What do you think?
I think so.
So as always, we always base, every episode we narrow it down to 3 questions. Does it work for the film?
See, that's a hard one for me. Because in places I feel like it works, in places I don't feel like it works. I wasn't too entirely happy with it when we merged it with the film. I really liked it on its own, though.
Yeah.
I liked it as a score piece. I liked it as music. But I didn't really like it in the movie itself because it seemed like too much of the same thing over and over again. There was no variety, no building, no tension building, no resolution sounding up until that last piece. So I'm going to answer no.
Yeah. All right. So when we were watching the film and you were telling me this, and I kept giving you crap, going, "Oh no, no, the score's great, works. There's no problem with it." But I for the purposes of this podcast, I have to be honest. Listening to it on its own, it's fun. I love the mixture of the drum and bass with the old sounding 1960s, 70s style score. Against the film, there's a lot of moments where it does work, like the ones I was just mentioning, the ending sequence, the sequence with Ruben. But there are a lot of moments where I agree with you. It sounds like it just kind of mixes in the background.
Drones on and
It
on.
becomes source music and everything else. But I gotta say this, it does stand out. It does work for a lot of scenes. So I'm gonna say with a hesitant yes. And the reason why I say it like that is because there are a lot of moments where it could have been better. But overall, I would say, yeah, it does work for the film. That's just my opinion.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I had to disagree with you.
that's fine.
Okay.
We're married. We disagree on lots of things.
Okay. Now.
Can't deny it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. All right. Your favorite scene, favorite score piece.
So my favorite scene is with Virgil and his brother, and they're trying to deliver the balloons as a you know oh, what's the word, look over here.
Yeah, distraction.
That's it, distraction.
Yeah, where he lets the balloons go onto the camera.
Right, and he's just like, I'm just trying to deliver my balloons.
And then Scott Conn just started busting out laughing. He's like, balloon boy.
To me, it made me laugh because it just reminded me of some of those silly arguments that I've gotten, into with my siblings. So,
and then they started doing the whole, which way you going, friend? I'm not your friend, pal. Yeah, I love that whole sequence.
Yeah, it was just, to me, that's my favorite part of the movie. And my favorite score piece is the last one. Was it the $160 million
Chinese Man?
Chinese Man. I really love that piece because it had, that one surprisingly had a little bit of variety to it. Even though there was kind of jazzy elements in there, it had more variety in it than some of the other pieces, in my opinion.
Now, one of the things about the actor that plays the Chinese Man, he did not speak any English. He was not an actor. And he really did come from a circus.
He did.
Yep.
And after this movie, he did consider becoming a stuntman, but he ended up going back to the circus.
And he's one of the characters who showed up throughout the rest of the series, even in Ocean's 8. Spoilers. My favorite scene, I don't know, there's so many. One of them.
The doctor.
I love the part, someone called for a doctor. I love that part, but I gotta say, probably one of my more favorite scenes is the part where Bernie Mac is negotiating with the car salesman, and the guy's trying to lowball him. He's like, "Oh, I can only take so much for each of those vans," and then he starts squeezing his hand. He's like, "Oh, do you moisturize?" He's like, I'm sorry." He's like, "I've tried all sorts of moisturizers," and he's just going on, and he's still gripping that guy's hand. And when he let him go, the guy's hand is like blood red. He dang near broke that guy's hand. And I was like, cool. That's pretty, that's pretty bold right there, buddy.
That scene, though, kind of reminded me of Used Cars. For whatever reason,
kind of. It was like a reverse sequence of Used Cars.
Right.
In Used Cars, they probably would have done that to the guy that's buying the car, not the car dealership, the seller. Yeah. Favorite score piece though is I gotta agree with you. It was $160 million Chinese Man, the ending sequence, because it's the one that really stands out. Now I did like the theme for Saul, but that wasn't part of the score. That was Quincy Jones.
It was good though.
It was good. It worked. It worked for the character. It worked great. So the last question: what could have been done different? Now I think we've kind of talked about that. So go ahead, Leslie.
As I mentioned before, what I think could have done different is that it could have score could have been punched up in places. They could have added a little bit more variety to it because of it seems homogenous in places. And I feel like there are particular places in which they needed to add score. So, those few points, is what I would have done differently.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree. So yeah, my thoughts exactly on that. I mean, there's a lot of parts that could have been punched up a little bit. Maybe added some sort of a theme. Maybe I don't know if that would have worked for this film, but
no, I don't think a recurring motif would have worked unless you did one for Tess. I think that would have worked for her character. If you kind of because strange thing about this movie is that bottom line, it is a love story.
Yeah.
Between George Clooney's character and Tess's character. So you've got this love story going on there on top of heist. So there's kind of undertones of that, and I could see where a motif would come into play.
For them, yeah. And one of the funny things about the whole thing with Julia Roberts, when George Clooney offered her, gave her the script and everything else, he said, "I heard you getting 20 a picture now," and he had a $20 bill in there for her.
That's because she, at the time that this movie came out, was the highest grossing female actress in Hollywood, and she was getting $20 million of film.
Yeah.
And he attached $20.
That's pretty funny. And then so it was becoming like her 20 years as an actress, right?
Yeah.
And then as a joke, because they picked on her a lot, just messing with her throughout the filming. They gave her the on-screen credit of, and introducing Julia Roberts. And then in the second one, it's introducing Tess as Julia Roberts. Because, spoilers, the one thing I hated about Ocean's 12, they make Tess have this whole thing where she is Julia Roberts. And that is the one thing that killed that movie for me. I did not like it. I hated that they did. I hate when they do stuff like when they take stuff meta. I can't stand it. It's just one thing. It's like, no, you don't have the actor or actress in there. And anyways.
So,
yeah.
Chris, tell me something that you don't like.
I just did.
Let me hear your opinions about what you don't like.
We don't have enough time for that.
Oh. It must be a long
list. It is. That one thing. Anyways. I don't want to keep going. I don't want to keep going on this.
Him stuttering.
Yes. So those are our thoughts on the score to Ocean's 11. Fun movie, fun score on its own. I could have been handled a little bit better, against the film, but it still works for the most part. Now, guys, we have a lot of great things coming up for this season. Now, one thing I want to talk about before we completely close this out, we have a merchandise store.
Yes, we do.
I'm so excited about that.
Tell us more, Chris.
We have tons of stuff available. We have t-shirts, mugs. We don't have mouse pads.
Do we have totes?
We do. We have totes.
And pins.
We have pins, like pins that you put on your clothes, not writing pins. But we do have books.
Books?
Books. Like journals.
Oh.
Seriously, we have a ton of apparel available.
Tell me more about these books.
Tell me more. No. Seriously, we got a ton of great stuff. We got stickers available that you can buy. If you want to purchase any of this stuff, there should be a link in the description below in the episode under the more section, or you can go to our link tree. It's a link tree. Just type in link tree measuring the score on Google. You'll find it, and right at the very top, you'll see merchandise, and just click that, and you can, go check it out.
I think I'm going to get a tote.
I'm getting a mug. I am definitely getting a mug. Mug and some stickers.
Because in the South, we all need totes. To tote stuff.
And we need mugs for our coffee.
Or in the words of my daddy, I toted it.
I toted it.
I toted it in a tote.
Alrighty. So, as always, you can find us pretty much anywhere you listen to the podcast, Spotify, Apple, anywhere. And also, guys, leave us a review and rating on Spotify and Apple. We would greatly appreciate it. Even if it's honest and you don't really like us too much, hey, put it on there. We need to know. We need to know how to improve. Or send us an email. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or send us an email at measuringthescore@gmail.com. If you want to find us on Facebook, just type in Measuring the Score Podcast. Same as on Instagram. Twitter, we are at Measure the Score. I'm usually on Twitter. Leslie does Facebook.
I don't tweet the tweets.
You don't tweet the tweets.
I
I
don't.
tweet. I tweet the tweets.
You tweet the tweets.
No,
I'm not the Tweety Bird. You're the Tweety Bird.
Yeah, you don't tweet. I tweet.
That's right.
Tweets. Do I get some tweets after this?
Maybe.
All right. You got anything else?
Not that I can think of.
All right. For Measuring the Score, I'm Chris.
And I'm Leslie.
Have a good one.